Yo, what's up? Welcome to Numbers with Jacari. I'm your host, Jacari, but you already know, call me Ace. And in this episode, I'm spilling some numerological tea, if you will, because I'm really sick and tired of people not talking about the things that need to be talked about. Because, for example, relationality, it's what keeps numerology moving, but how much you want to bet you haven't heard of it? And I'm talking about not just me. I'm seeing other numerologists, other people who are very numerologically versed. Have they talked about relationality? It's probably unlikely. I haven't found anybody. And if you know anybody who's not me who talks about relationality, please send them my way. Because relationality goes over how numbers work together. Like explicitly how they work together. Because it's not if the number works together. Similar to compatibility in astrology, it's how. Or just compatibility in general. It's just like, it's not if they work together, it's how they work together. Because all numbers work together. And we just want to figure out what themes they connect on. So you have unlikely pairs like 2 and 9, 1 and 6. What else is there? 8 and 3. Then the list goes on of unlikely combinations based off of each individual number's energy that would say, oh no, these numbers don't work together. But it's not just a black and white thing of saying that they don't work together. It's just like, okay, they might not be comfortable upon first glance, or they might not be likely upon first glance, but there's something there. And one of the unlikely pairs that we're going to use for this example is 9 and 2. You have 9 being ruled by Mars and Neptune. It has a very powerful focus. It's very determined. It's very wise and very confident, but it also can be aggressive and impulsive and also unstable, because it rules also over the area of life that is the unconscious and transition. So think of it as, because it's the last number, it highlights this release of everything. It's letting everything go. So they're kind of saying, fuck the world, we out. It's kind of how 9 embodies, or how 9 moves and what it embodies. Now, you have 2 being ruled by the moon, which is a very caring and fluid, reliable energy, but that reliability can sometimes be connected to people-pleasing and insecurity and obsessiveness. Now, 2's area of life is community and connection. It desires things that bring things together and what makes it feel safe, and that is in that community. Now, when we look at these 2 numbers together, just upon rulership, if you look at Mars and the moon, you're sort of kind of like, I don't know, maybe. Neptune and the moon, it does pull it a little bit closer together. They have a little bit more similar energies, but because 9 has also that Mars energy in there, you're sort of kind of like, nope, there's definitely no way. Now, you have 2 being this gentle, restful, and somewhat insecure energy that comes from a place of care. And that could seem like it's pushing away from 9 in regards to how confident 9 is. But 9 can also be a little bit harsh and a little bit restless. And that's coming from a place of duty. But where they connect is that they're both very passionate numbers. They have a very high sense of morale, and they can be very selfless. 2's driving force is this community and this desire to be connected, this desire to feel secure, to feel safe, to feel wanted. And 9's driving force can be a freedom, an adventure, a desire to explore. And that comes from understanding whatever it is internally. On a psychological side, what do I want out of life? I feel like a very clear example of this is one of my favorite people is a psychic 9, and their mom is a psychic 2, and the 2 of them are best friends. They go together real bad, if you will. And that relationship doesn't necessarily seem likely based off of the psychic 2 of the parent and the psychic 9 of the child, but they do. And they're also very similar, and that's one of the coolest thing about unlikely pairs in numerology is that they tend to be more similar than you may think they are. And this is what you gain when you look past things like life path numbers and you really dive in to numerology in the broad and diverse world that it is. Because, like I said, other unlikely pairs and combinations could be like 6 and 1, but you also have like 7 and 8, 3 and 2, and literally any other numbers you can think of. And the same goes for like multi-digit numbers. They all work together. The question is how. So when you're seeing any numbers, like you're seeing 113 or 247 or 358 or just any numbers, they work together, and it's not going to ever be just a simple good or bad, a yes or a no. There's more there because the numbers embody more than just yes or no, black and white. It goes further than that. And when you're able to recognize that how, you get so much further, because this is one of the issues I have with a lot of people in numerology, or not even in numerology, but the system and the conversation, rather the lack of conversation around it, because there's not a lot of people who really talk about the technical side of numbers. You have people who will approach the system from a very intellectual side of connecting it back to what people deem as relatable, of celebrities and public figures, and using things that you're easily to comprehend to gain traction on content. You also have people who connect numerology to astrology, which is very beneficial. I highly recommend doing that because they're systems that are supposed to be done together anyway. But when you take the system and don't allow yourself to keep expanding your knowledge, you're not only getting left behind in one way, but anybody who's looking up to you is also getting left behind because they don't know that this is an option. And when you talk about things like relationality and generational numerology, which I'm about to get to in a second, you get so much further and you're able to see so much more and understand so much fuller, if that's how you would structure that sentence. But like, you get so much more out of it. And I love talking about things like this, like generational numerology, which goes over the numbers that are passed down. Now, one of the things that irks me about generational numerology is that if you type in generational numerology or like family tree numerology into Google, at least this is what I found, maybe they've updated it, who knows, all you'll find is like last name numerology. Now, there's many problems with that: colonization, slavery, eradication of people and their cultures. A lot of people don't have their last names that their ancestors do. And that disconnection alone makes last name numerology sort of kind of null and void for a lot of people. And that's not fair. And I think what I love is when you pay attention to the number side of it. Now, if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure you share it on your socials and tag me at Numbers with Jacari on Instagram and TikTok, and book your free consultation if that's something that you want to understand in regards to your personal numerology, because we're going to go more in depth and it is very much personalized to you because it's your numbers. But all direct links for that are in the description of this episode. But back to generational numerology. What I was saying about the numbers, those hold more power and there's less alteration with that. You know, you can commonly dissipate or eradicate somebody's name or maybe even their culture. But the thing about numbers is they've been around for so long that you don't really change those things. You don't really ignore those things. Those are things that are actually celebrated and brought back time and time and time again. People will celebrate their birthdays. People celebrate anniversaries. So it's burned into your brain to some extent of these quote unquote important dates. You have holidays that also have specific dates. And all of those things connect back to numbers. So when we look at generational numerology, there's relationality, but you also want to look at patterns. So this is reflections, multiples, and synchronicities. Now, reflections are two numbers that sit on opposite sides of the same vibration. You have 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6, and 5 and 5. But you and your family members could have a reflective relationship. So this means you could have somebody who's born on the 1st and then somebody who's born on the 18th, which simplifies to 9. So how you want to find this date of birth is look at the day that you're born. If it's a 2-digit number, add it together until you get a single digit to figure out what number you'll end up with. Now, you can have that type of relationship in a generation where one of them is a psychic 1, the other is a psychic 9. You could also have it being a psychic 3 and a psychic 7. And you can also do this in destiny numbers and name numbers. Your destiny number, in the way that I'm speaking of it, is the same as your life path number, Vedic number. They're all the same thing. People just want to have their name in a hat and say that they did something. Same math, different systems. That's the only difference. But when you're looking at these reflections that you could also have in your own numerology, you can have reflections in your own numerology of like having a psychic 3 and a destiny 7, or a psychic 8 and a destiny 2. There's a bunch of ways that this can happen. But when you look at this generationally, it will play out differently depending on where it's placed. So a reflection between child to parent is going to play out differently than sibling to sibling. And the same thing with grandparent to grandchild. It just depends on where the reflection is placed will depend on how it's going to play out, because there's typically more of a direct line of content between parent and child versus grandparent and grandchild. But it also depends on the family dynamic. So this is where readings and things of that sort come into it, because to fully understand the grasp of it, you have to have all of these details to be able to fully understand what it is that what you're looking at. Because also then you can also see how you were raised, in a sense of, okay, well, a 2 might raise a child this way, but an 8 might raise a child this way. But what if the 8 is a child of the 2, or the 2 is the child of the 8, and so on and so forth? And you can also see the way that generational numerology works in regards to multiples and halves. Now, this is the numbers that naturally connect due to multiplication. Now, everything's a multiple of 1, so anyone can technically, anybody could have a 1. You just got to find how they connect. So that could be through something like reflections that we just talked about, or even random patterns that seem random, but they're not really random. So seemingly random patterns like 1, 4, and 7, or 1, 5, and 9. Or like 1, 3, and 5. There's a bunch of different ways that 1 can show up in patterns because of its strong relationality with other numbers. But when we look at multiples like 2, 4, 6, 8, 3, 6, 9, and 4 and 8, we get another look into these things as well. And that's another way that generational numerology comes into play, is looking at multiples. And again, this is something that when you are able to work with somebody who knows and is well versed in generational numerology, you can really get that insight into those generations before you and understand, oh, well, these are the numbers that are dominant in my family. These are the themes that as a family and as a lineage we're experiencing in some way, shape, or form, because it's very likely that you're going to have a dominant number of some sort, which is just the number that shows up the most through everybody's numbers. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person will have that number, but since all numbers have a level of relationality, there's going to be a connection in some way, shape, or form. So you might find the pattern of like 3, 6, 9. You might find a lot of 1s, a lot of 5s, a lot of 9s. That's another pattern. So you're just looking to see how everything connects. And these are the topics I want people to talk about, because it doesn't stop at things like synchronicities, which is just the same number, which everybody loves to talk about, angel numbers, and the synchronized angel numbers of your 111s and your 888s and your 1212s, and the mirroring numbers of 1221 or 1331. And it's like, those are great. I love that for y'all. I really do. That's amazing. However, there's more to numerology than that. There's so much more. And I didn't even finish the whole conversation around generational numerology. Like, there's so much that you can really get out of this system if you know what you're looking for, and also if you find people who are actually talking about it. And I will say that I will be completely honest that I've had people who come to work with me and who have found me through my social media and been like, to be completely honest, you just seem like you knew what you were talking about compared to everybody else. And I want to find other people who know what they're talking about, because I want to not believe that I'm the only one out here. But hey, I might be. Again, I don't want to admit it. I don't want to accept it. I want to deny it for as long as I can. But it's really beautiful when you're able to see how much a system, when you look at all of these techniques, can give you so much. Because when we look at things like astrology, for example, this is a system that has been used for a very, very long time. And in the numerological space, for a lot of numerologists, it's rumored, per se, that numerology came before astrology, because astrology incorporates numbers. So how did you really get those numbers without taking into account the system that uses numbers? So people use astrology and they ride for it, but there's not that same ride for numerology, and that's also probably due to the popularization of the Pythagorean system. So hey, not even no shade to Pythagoras, because he didn't even touch that. Like, it was his students who ratted on him, basically. The Pythagorean numerology came to be because Pythagoras who's from Greece, went all over the world to learn numerology from all these different systems. So Pythagorean numerology is actually a combination. The confirmed per se is Kabbalah and Chaldean numerology made up Pythagorean numerology in some way, shape, or form in regards to technique and terminology even. And he came back to Greece, picked however many people he picked, and taught them everything that he knew, but he didn't let them write any of these things down. But when he died, everybody was like, you know what? I'm telling everybody now. I'm telling everybody this information because this is such important information that the entire world needs to know this. And that's kind of, I wonder how Pythagoras feels about that. That's sort of kind of gotta suck. But it's just like, when we're able to look past the life path number and you're able to look at more technical terms and also the simpler sides of things, and also take multiple systems into account to get a very well-rounded view, because you have a lot of people who approach numerology from a Pythagorean standpoint, which puts heavy emphasis on not only personal numerology, but your life path number and your name at birth. That is a very important thing for the Pythagorean system. It's putting the most emphasis on your name at birth. So if you've changed your name, whether that through legal name change, marriage, for religious beliefs, whatever you change your name for, Pythagorean numerology does not care. It really doesn't. And that's one of the issues that I have with it personally, because a lot of the calculations outside of the life path number and the birth date number, there might be one other number that is used in Pythagorean that's based off of your birth information. Everything else is your name, and it's that name at birth. So it's just like it sort of kind of caps at some point. And that don't sit right with me. And this is why we do multiple systems over here. But it's just like, I want more people to have an open, broader conversation around this, because it's like, when I search on Google for numbers, I get an intuitive answer, which there's nothing wrong with intuition, but there's also facts out there. And I want a conversation that has the facts in there, so you can see how technically sound this system is, because it is very technically sound. If you look at it from the Pythagorean standpoint solely, you could find a lot of holes. But when you take in the things from Chaldean and Vedic and probably the other systems that are out there are so many numerology systems out there. You fill in them gaps. Them gaps get filled real quick. And I want more of that. And I hope to be a part of that as well in regards to that conversation around expanding numerology and the understanding of it, because a lot of people, I will never forget working one of my old jobs, and I was showing somebody a birth chart, an astrology birth chart, and a kid walked up and said, "Oh my God, is that geometry?" And I was like, "No," and she was like, "Oh my God, thank God, because I'm starting geometry next year and I don't want to do whatever that is." And I was like, "It's astrology, but it's okay." And for so many people, I imagine a lot of people looked at a birth chart and been like, "Oh my God." And if you look at numerology, when it's taught well, you're able to really grasp it. Oh my gosh, I just want people to be able to, I want you to be able to grasp it. And I hope this helped you grasp it. And if it did, let me know. And even if it didn't, let me know. I want you to be completely honest and transparent with me, because I want to teach you whatever it is you want to know about numbers. And I know that you might be like, "I want to know everything you know." It's like, okay, well, that's not really helpful completely. I need more specifics. Because if there's anything I've ever spoken on that really piques your interest, I want to do more things around those topics. I want to do things that really help you understand numerology. I want to do things that really help you understand your numerology and also the numerology around you, because the numerology doesn't stop at your life path number. It never has and it never will. It doesn't stop at angel numbers. It doesn't stop at master numbers. There's so many more things that you can get when you understand how numbers in and of themselves work, because they're everywhere. They're always showing themselves. They're always right in front of your faces. They're on the receipts at the store. They're the total of whatever it is you're purchasing. They're on the prices of the items. They're on your what are those things called? Your license plates. This your social security card, your debit cards, your address. They're literally everywhere. The time numbers are literally everywhere. Why isn't the conversation around numerology bigger? I don't know. I obviously have some strong feelings, but thank you for listening. Make sure you share this with somebody who needs to hear this, because this is a message that the world needs to hear. So follow me on IG and TikTok at Numbers with Jacari, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.